welcome and those who are online. To formally open our council meeting for today, I will give our council prayer and te reo. Kei noi tātou, e te atua, ka tuku mātou kia kahamai ngā māngai ko whiriwhirihia mo te kaunihira o te hiko o tika ki te mahi me te ngā kau awaha me te hakamahi i ngā pūkenga me te mātauranga i roto i ngā wānanga me ngā whakataunga kia whakatūri ai te tahi hapuri e matatika ana e tūkotahi ana kamatu ka whakapiki anu i te oranga o tō tātou rohe ka whakatau anu i ngā take o te rohe i runga i te tika me te pono. Lord, we ask that through council discussions and decisions, the representatives we have elected may govern the Far North District with imagination, skill and wisdom to achieve a fairer and more united community that enhances the well-being of our district and solves the district's problems efficiently and effectively. Amen. Well, apologies, we could just have noted apologies from some of our strategic leadership team members. Charlie Fillington, our GM for Corporate Services. We have Ken McDonald for Finance Attending and Margaret Bingstra for Transport Attending and instead. Emma Healy, our Chief of Staff. We have Kayla Jones attending instead. Carla Ditchfield from Legal. We have Rebecca Raul attending instead. And just to note that Ruben Garcia, our GM for Delivery and Operations, is attending online. Also, we could just note apologies, not in Ruben. Note that Councillor Foy was coming to check in the weather 10 minutes ago, so she will be here. She'll just be a little bit late. And I'll tell her to please drive safely. So we could just get those noted. I think we need to wait and receive them. By way of mayoral announcements before we get into our deputations, today in my maramataka is Kore Kore Piri ki Tangaroa. Kore Kore is not the best place to have a hui in, but apparently it's a really good place for wānanga. So I'm going to not think about this being a meeting per se, but today is a wānanga with this massive agenda in front of us, so it's going to be good. But we are going into high energy phase after this. And I hear that our Peru Pack House is going to be busy because they are going to be, what's hauhake mean in English? Harvesting their Peru for Christmas. So kakaha to our Peru Pack House and all of our whānau who have been growing Peru out in Ngāwhā with that. My address is no, I would like something to elected member reports. Now, in the previous term, we did have elected member reports as a standing item for our council agenda. Those are going to be moved to our next year to our new governance and operational briefings that will be live streamed for us to capture there. So they didn't make it into our already packed agenda, but thank you to Councillor Stratford, Councillor Haukia Harawira, Deputy Mayor Radcliffe and myself have submitted some, which will be uploaded to our website on our governance page for the Far North District Council, so where you can access those there. But I am going to, and I apologise that we must put in our Friday notices the templates and the reminder to all elected members. But thank you for those for experts. Oh, sorry, it's not in front of me. And Aroha Nui Allens. I'll read it. I will just afford the opportunity to any members, whether verbally or putting their written as a part of mayoral announcements, high level that you need to capture. Councillor Allen.
Mihi ana ki a koe kahika o tira ki te kaunihira o te hupuika. Ina pō e whare mere e kautohi ana mō tētahi pire. I whakamohio mai tētahi mema o paremata ko te kaunihira o te hiku ana he e tuku kōrero hei whakapapāko ngā hiahia ngā ai mai o a tātou tangata. Nā reira tēnā koe kahika mo tō kaha tuku te reo o te hiku o te ika ki ngā wāhi me tuku.
Tēnā koe, ka kite I roto I tēnei kairua, ko te tuhinga a ngā kaimahi kaunihira ka whiwhia I tēnei kaunihira tēnei rānei. We'll receive the written submission to their fast track legislation in our council meeting today. Thank you, Councillor Allen. But for members of the public, you can access those reports on our council page, and maybe if we could have a media update, that's where those will be available, and that they'll be going in our operational and governance briefings. There was a whole media story about what that looks like and keeping the public on our governance and operational mahi that we're doing in council. Christmas events. Thank you to staff. Now, as the Far North District, we don't, and we're a little bit pohara when it comes to food out. So we don't have specific events team like other councils do to actually organise things. Most councils have like a single city or a small number of satellite towns that they look after. So their councils are more directly involved in festivals and events and the organisation of that. The Far North has over 215 settlements. So we do rely on our community to step up and organise and run events for our communities. And man, have they ever this year for Christmas. I do want to just thank our comms team for putting those together in a little bit of a release. We've had some fantastic Christmas events on already. And thank you to all of the volunteer organisations, community groups, business associations, resident associations, all of that. Just so you know, Hana Kuku's not finished in the Far North, because this weekend up in Te Hiku, we've got the Far North Christmas in the Sky at the Kaitaia AMP Showgrounds, and I believe thanks are in order to the owner of our Pack and Save Kaitaia who stepped in with bridge funding at the last minute to ensure that community event could go ahead. Thank you to all of our organisers there. We also have our Te Hapua Centre Parade and Whānau Day on this weekend. Bay of Islands Whangarua, we've got this afternoon. So if we rush through this, you can get over there, councillor, for setting a community Christmas event at our Maita 10. We also have Wairua Christmas in the park at Simpson Park. Tōtara North Christmas Market on this weekend. Next weekend we've got a Christmas skate night at Bay Sport Waipapa. For Kaikoe Hokianga, we've got Christmas in Awarua on tomorrow. This weekend we also have our Okaiho Christmas Parade at the Okaiho Rugby Grounds. And on Christmas Day itself, there is Christmas dinner at the Sands in Omapiri. So happy Christmas to everyone. Across the Far North, still got a little bit more money to do though before we get there. Councillors and community board chairs, happy Christmas to you all. You'll see you've got your own cups from me for Christmas this year. Because I found our council cups are like ones at the marae, they're like too small for a cup. You've got to go refill it 3 times to get a decent one. A little bit extra big cup for you. And for all of our staff and SLT members, for SLT members and our CEO, you see you've got an Office of the Mayor branded one. It doesn't have your name on it because the template was taking too long for me, so I gave up. So I just put Office of the Mayor on it. That's so that when every time you have a coffee, you'll see my name and you'll remember you've got to do mahi for me. Acknowledging that the Russell Kolorareka Cemetery Urupa Phase 1 opening happened, and thank you to elected members who attended that. That's fantastic news for our community who've been waiting a very long time to inter the ashes of their loved ones. So that's great to see. And a reminder that our council will be closed from the 24th of December at midday through to the 5th of January. Council mahi, though, carries on, and our will be open and available for anyone who needs to make urgent requests for service to get that sorted. I've got apologies on behalf of Democracy Services regarding incorrect recording number and printed versions of the supplementary agenda. 5.1 is 5.2, 5.2 is 5.3, and 7.1 is 7.8. Surely I'll remember to direct you to the correct page in your case. All errors in the online agendas, including the reference to there being no deputation, have been corrected. Thank you for picking up on that, Councillor Court. Put fish to you. Our team will pay closer attention to these formatting issues moving forward. And with that, we are going to get into our deputations. Our first deputation waiting ever so patiently is from Robert Adams, who is going to give a housing for the elderly verbal submission with their submission fee in front of you should be. Robert, I'll just check that you can hear us, and if you want to test out your microphone again. Get you to try and unmute for us, please, Robert. I'm having, what's that thing called? It's a French word and it's like you've seen this before.
Some use a standard.
What we will do, Mr. Adams, is get someone from staff to help you out there, and we'll go to our second deputation and come back to you if that's all right. And I believe we've got Yvonne by Yvonne here to speak on the Mangu 2026 Waitangi commemorations. Tēnā koe pai, Yvonne, mai haere mai.
Tēnā koe.
For your reputation today, we are sending out orders of ours for 15 minutes. How you use that time is up to you. If there is time left over, there could be questions from the table, but no mai haere mai, and I'll pass the time over to you. Thank you.
Tēnā koe. Tēnā koe tau katoa. I'm good at this. So my name is Yvonne DP Mutu. Whakarongo Ngā o Whenrai. Okeana, I'm going to ask, so I am the chair of Māori Whakatupu o Hokianga, which is a trust down here that was developed in the 1990s by Mary Taylor, if anyone knows her, Tueloma Taylor, or Taylor Tueloma. And the waka was built under the guidance of Ben Tawaki, and I've been a part of the waka for a long time. And so Ngāori Whakatupu o Hokianga actually hosts a Mangu Day with the support of our, we have Owi Whakahaere, and there's a number of areas that we cover, and we have members from home that and outside of home that are on the Owi Whakahaere. And we had our recent meeting on Monday just to talk about Mangungu. I'm here. I'm just going to hand it over to Maury, who is the coordinator of the event. And I'm just going to try to push for it.
Tuatahi akera e tika na mihe tuatahi kia koe hika. Me o kupu whakamoimiti kia koe ihu o tō tātou wai maoro, te mana po hia, o kupu e pāana ki te ngāko o tēnā e noho iru. Loro nei o te whare, kātahi kārua ki ngā mate, a mate hurua, rātou kārua mene ki tua o te arai, rātou I para te huarahi ma mātou nāene, no reira kei ngā mate haere mai haere, huri te mauri o tēnei, kia tātou te kutai au kanu kiora, e tau nei whati hei mauri ora kia tātou. Kei ngā kaikauni hena tēnā koutou, o te ki ngā pau mahi o te pauni hera, nei rā te mihi mai o hā kia koutou, o te rā ki ngā manuhiri whakaike mai nei, muri iāhau, mihi atua nā rā kia koutou, tai tawhiti mai, tai tata mai, me o koutou whanui, koutou paramai te arawa atu, mihi atua nā rā kia koutou whakatau, o te rā tēnā tātou. Ka huri au te rā tū ngā reo, kia whaka mālamati ai hea hawe me o ngā kōrero ka kōrero ia nei pina. It wasn't very palatable to my ear, if I got to hear that you had very little funding by way of events, because that is the reason we're standing here today. That's to ask for some funding. However, Mangungu, in 1828, the whenua of Mangungu and Hokianga, Moreke, Utukura area, was gifted by our tupuna Matuone as a mission station, for the establishment of a mission station. On February 12th, 1840, 6 days after the signing of Te Tiriti o Waitangi at Waitangi, the biggest signing of Te Tiriti o Waitangi happened at Mangungu. Now, Mangungu isn't represented by one particular hapu. In fact, there are multiple hapus that have whakapapa into their whenua. Even Yvonne and myself represent those hapu as Māngai. For the past some 30 years, Māori whakatipu o Hokianga have been gradually commemorating Mangungu along with our small community. And over the years, we've done it with the aloha and the love of all of our people in the Haukainga and from koha and donations that we've received from outside. We've never been one to receive big, massive amounts of funding like the Waitangi National Trust and all of those other particular trusts that commemorate Waitangi and get all of this funding, and yet poor little old Mangungu gets left behind, and yet our claim to fame is that over 64 rangatira signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi at Mangungu in the Hokianga, the biggest representation at any signing, given that they estimate there were around about 3,000 people that attended Mangungu on the 12th of February 1840. Now, as the years have progressed, we all know that costs of living, rising costs, have impacted our ability to be able to continue to call on whānau for koha and support, whether it's pipi, whether it's, kaura. I've never seen one of those at Mangungu, or anything like that. Unfortunately, we have been unable to call on our whānau as we have in the past. And as with Mangungu, we try to keep things unbiased. We are not politically motivated at Mangungu. We are not politically driven at Mangungu. Our commemoration is all about ensuring acknowledgement of our tupuna, our 64 tupuna, that rangatira that signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi at Mangungu. And of course, over the years, the Trust and also being with members of the community, particularly in these past 6 years, have pulled out of our own pockets to ensure that we're able to continue to commemorate this auspicious occasion to us in the whānau of Hokianga. Now, the rangatira that signed there weren't only rangatira from Utakura, from Whakarongoru Maunga. In fact, rangatira come across from Te Kahika's side of the waters there, over on the other side from Kohukohu, from Mitimiti, from Panguru, from Te Karai, from Mangamuka Mangataipa. There were rangatira that all came across to little old Mangungu to sign Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So what we're doing here, whānau, is we are here to respectfully ask and request support by way of funding. Given that the rising costs, and we have yet to have our road sealed, which I know was on the council agenda many years ago, up to Motukiore, up to Mangungu, so I'm just going to plant that seed there and rehash that particular kaupapa. Due to this, and one of the many reasons, as the growth of Mangungu and the commemorations has taken place year on year, it's impeded our traffic flow. We have a dusty dirt road which is full of potholes, and of course we don't have very good traffic management up there, particularly around Mangungu time. So what we're looking for next year is we're looking for funding to support us with traffic management planning, to get traffic management in place. Last year, there was significant health and safety risks with the parking that happened in and around Mangungu. Emergency vehicles couldn't get in, nor could they get out, nor could vehicles leave should they wish to leave. So that was quite dangerous, and it's something that the Trust have looked into in the debrief moving towards 2026. That is one of the major costs that we've never had to factor in the past, so we do need support there. Quotes that we've obtained anywhere between 7,000 to 10,000 for traffic management, which starts from the Horeke School bridge right through to Mangungu itself. So there's those significant costs. There are other incurred costs as well in and around Manaki tangata, looking after the people, supporting the people, whāngai tangata, being able to feed our whānau, also to koha our Māori wardens as well. We also have, over the past 3 or 4 years, we've also had the attendance of mai pewhairangi, the waka crew from the Bay of Islands, come across and support our small waka crew in Hokianga there, and so we've now incurred costs in and around being able to look after Tiaki and Manaki, our waka crews that have come over and bring their waka over from Te Pewhairangi, the Bay of Islands. So there's some exponential costs, I guess, te kahika that we're now experiencing, which potentially going to hinder our progress in and around being able to deliver Māngungu Waitangi commemorations moving forward into 2026. So, not only te aroha, ngā mātou, ngā hapu o te raorau, o te whanga, o te kura, ngā hapu katoa o te whānau pani, o Ngāti Toro, o te honi, te ngahe, anō hoki o te popoto, tēnei e tuku tono kia koutou mō ngā pūtia mō tō mātou, tō tātou rā o Māngungu 2026. Korea tāku no tēnā koutou, he pāta.
Nā koea, e mihi ana ki a koe kaurua koutou e hakahaere nei I tēnei rā rangatira o tātou o tīko tika. He rā rangatira mō Aotearoa whānui, Miki. Are there any questions from the floor? Time for a couple of questions if there are any. Councillor Stratford.
Hello, Mary. Thank you for that corridor. I was surprised to hear that there was access issues in the traffic management concerns for last year, because we urged staff to get involved and do dust suppressant, do pothole management. Did you experience any assistance from us?
Absolutely, yeah, and look, thank you for mentioning that, Kelly. We received significant support from the council last year, absolutely, by way of dust suppressant, the water tanker going along. But of course, with the weather we're experiencing and the weather we experienced last year, it doesn't really last that long in terms of being able to subdue the dust for a longer period of time. And also we received some financial support from, at the very last minute, may I add too. So I do thank you for that, but we certainly received the support. One of the big issues, I guess, is around managing the people and how they park and where they park. And that's just something that we did not have in place last year.
I'll go to Councillor Vucic and then Deputy Leader.
I was there last year and it was actually a real risk, and I saw that people potentially getting hurt. I think the kura was potentially buses running, but it wasn't. To have that would be great. But look, what I'm really keen on is part of this Cycleway Trust is to get a treaty-to-treaty trust happening. And growing that whole area, and especially the Waitangi Week, and actually get to 1840, I expect your numbers to grow. So I think you'd have a serious problem there. Are you planning? What are you planning in terms of fitting with Waitangi and growing through to the 1840 in that area?
1940?
2040.
Oh yeah, great question, John. One of the very first things is accessibility. That's the very main thing that we need to work on in terms of being able to grow and actually to be able to support the growth of Māngungu moving into the 200th year. So one of the things is please fix our roads and our access to Māngungu, and that will go a long way towards mitigating the risks that you experienced, that we all experienced last year, John. One of the plans moving forward is, of course, there is dialogue, and it's only happened in the last 2 years between ourselves and the Hokianga and our whānau, the Taitama Wahine, the east side, with regards to them supporting our waitangi and us supporting them across there, which we actually have done for many, many years. We've gone across. And now they're only just starting to reciprocate. So with their arrival last 2 years, it's only going to increase. And this year we've started planning a little bit earlier to get on top and to be able to mitigate a lot of the risks that we experienced last year so that we don't have them next year.
Tēnā koe, mihi ana ki a koe kia kaurua. I did have a question from Deputy Mayor Rudkin, Councillor Rakina, and then also Chair Ward. We have run out of time though. Are you happy for your contact details to be shared with elected members? They can ask questions directly?
Yeah.
Okay, I just keep, I'm going to chair a little bit stricter today because we've got big koe and a lot of deputations. Tēnā kaurua.
Tēnā kōrua.
Mr. Adams. Would you like to test unmuting again for us? You are unmuted, but still no sound. We had this issue when we meant to receive this the other day. That's right. You might try it. Can we get one of the GTs at the back to do a Teams call with them? Well, I think they did, but I don't know what's happening today. So we will come back to him. Next, I have got Missy Rivers, Stony Creek Settlement Road, to give a deputation bus. Tēnā koe. No mind hiding mai. Well, our standing out orders will allow for 5-minute deputation. Any time left over, it could be for questions like you've just seen. Thank you for coming on today. Pass over the time to you.
Thank you. I'm not sure to my my name is Missy Rivers. I'm the team lead in Te Amuhia Charitable Trust. Charitable Trust. We work with and on behalf of Ngāti Aotearoa in the Monganui area, looking after the environment. Our concern that has brought us here today is by Kauri Conservation Area, which is Kauri Diabetic, killing our coyotes, and a public road that runs straight through the middle of transferring this flora around the reserve. I'm very concerned about that. I'm going to hand out some copies here of our presentation today.
Right, well, we can help.
That will be done by Jane because I haven't got my glasses. And then any questions I can answer. Thank you. Oh, and we can also ask you for support for the discretionary fund.
Pena koe teite, kaihira, ngānehui o te wāhiro mea. From retainment of Whaikawhora Agatha and protection of Paikauri Conservation Area. Kia ora koutou, my name is Joan Martin and I'm speaking on behalf of our hapu-led environmental project protecting Paikauri Monganui, which is a 347 hectare native reserve with important kauri forests and native biodiversity. This reserve is one of several in the far north at risk from phytophthora. This is a soil-borne pathogen that causes kauri dieback disease. It infects healthy kauri trees through their roots, damaging the tissues that absorb water and nutrients. Once infected, kauri slowly starves and dehydrates, leading to yellowing and thinning of the canopy, resin bleeding at the base of the trunk, and eventual treatment. The pathogen spreads through infected soil and water, including roots on boots, tyres, machinery, and runs. There is no cure. Preventing soil movement and containing spread is the only effective protection for healthy kauri. The problem. Testing has confirmed the presence of Phytophthora agatha in Paikauri. A public road runs through the infected area, allowing uncontrolled vehicle and foot access. Every time a vehicle passes through, it moves soil and water, increasing the likelihood of pathogen spread, both within the reserve and into 3 nearby uninfected Cody reserves. The road is clay-based with metal and it requires frequent maintenance due to water runoff from surrounding hills. This runoff causes slips, ruts and erosion, which not only make the road unsafe but also spreads contaminated soil. Continuing to maintain or grade this road under current conditions would be astronomically expensive and counterproductive to containment efforts. Legal and governance responsibility. Under the National Cody Dieback Pest Management Plan, Phytophthora agasicida is a listed pest organism. This means the Far North District Council, as a territorial authority, has statutory obligations to contain and prevent the spread of the pathogen, work collaboratively with mana whenua and land managers, and support localised containment and biosecurity action. Because the pathogen lies along a public road, Far North District Council also holds roading responsibilities under the Local Government Act and Public Works Act. Any decision to close, restrict or manage the road must go through the formal public process, but that process can and should be initiated given the current risk and costs. Our proposal. We propose a joint containment plan between Far North District Council and our hapu, including installing lock gates at both entry and exit points, erecting Cody dieback awareness and hygiene signage, and developing an access management protocol for authorised and essential users only. We have not yet purchased gates or signage, as these must align with Far North District Council's public process and roading management obligations. These actions would contain the pathogen, prevent transmission to nearby uninfected reserves, avoid costly and high-risk road maintenance, and help the Far North District Council meet its legal containment responsibility. Within close proximity to this site of Paikori are 3 uninfected Cody reserves: Whakangi, Akatarere Historical Reserve and Pika Bay. If the pathogen is spread through road use or runoff, these areas and potentially the wider Far North forest system could face irreversible ecological loss. This is an opportunity for Far North District Council to lead in regional biosecurity and responsible land management. We are asking Far North District Council to acknowledge the confirmed pathogen presence and containment obligations. 2, to initiate the public process to restrict or manage road access and collaborate with our hapu to design and implement lawful containment measures, including gates, signage, and monitoring. This will ensure both compliance and protection for our ecosystems and community values. In summary, continuing to maintain the clay-based road through an infected reserve would be costly, unsustainable, and environmentally harmful. By working together now to control access and contain the pathogen, Far North District Council and our hapu can protect the integrity of our Cody forests and show leadership in environmental stewardship. Ngā mihi nui, thank you for your time and consideration. And we welcome questions which receive.
Over Plato, first off, thank you for coming to deputise our council. At the start of the deputation, I was wondering how Northern Regional Council is involved in this and how we are potentially implicated in it, but we obviously are as the owner of the road that goes through there. I just looked it up on the map, and this shows that I'm a townie, because I'm from both Taimaro and Waimahana, and Stony Creek Settlement Road is a connector across for both of those, right? But as locals with the intimate knowledge of the area, what is the usage of that? Like, how many, other than, say, it looks like maybe forestry potentially could use that road, how many are there locals that live on that road itself? What is the
road isn't used that often, but what it is used for.
Doesn't look like you'd want to use it too.
No, that's right. It's very dangerous because there's slip on one side, it's undermined under the road, faces into Taimaro. And on the other side, there's another slip that's coming down on the entry on the other side. And nobody can do anything about it because they die back in the reserve. We spoke to the roading committee for Far North District Council, and they come out and had a look, along with MPI, DOC, Regional Council, local farmers, Hapu members, and we marked out all the kauri trees that are along there, because if it's a kauri hazard area, so we get this that we can't move within the tree root system, which is about 3 times that of the foliage above the tree. So the kauri are all along the roadway, some are 700 years old. So in order to put a road or maintain the road up to the level that you need for transport to go through at the level of the Biosecurity Act, you would have to have a heavy metal. I think they would get out of like millions of dollars.
If I was going from Taimaro to Paradise to Waimahana, I would take State Highway 10. What is the time difference between using State Highway 10 over using the settlement road, Stony Creek?
Not very long, it's not much difference. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah. Not many people use it. The only people that use it are the local farmers, and we've spoken to them. There's no need for them because they've got cattle yards either end, and their paddocks are outside of the reserve. Pig hunters, and we've been talking to them to try and get them to the other reserves and hunt bear. So we've been talking with them. Council, DOC and Regional Council don't have the problem with the road being closed off, or MPI to try and save the kauri trees. So we've spoken to emergency services. They said as long as we leave them contact details and they can get through, they don't have a problem with it, because the only 2 houses on the road are either end, right at the beginning of the road, so it's not or hurt anybody else.
This sounds like something that, this is the first time I've heard of this, and other members may have, but it's good to know that our roading team have been involved. And that Regional Council has. Listen, we're going to have, for me, as Mayor, we're going to have to pick this one up and have a conversation with staff and with Regional Council as well around controlled area notice, because they're the environmental watchdog for now.
Yeah.
But I think that there's definitely something that we'll be able to do to ensure that we can protect our kauri in the area, and there are solutions that are available. So we've got time if there are any other questions, otherwise something that I want to pick up and follow on. We'll go to Councillor Foy and then Deputy Mayor Rick.
Sure. Just a patai about the road itself. Are you asking council to undertake a road stopping notice?
Yes.
So I'm the chair of the infrastructure committee. I'm not sure about the process for that and how elected members are involved. But
we've been going through it for about 2 years now, trying to get this brought to the table. We've been speaking with the lawyers from Far North District Council, the rating committee. Yeah.
So you're not. So it isn't limiting access. You're actually just wanting to stop the legal road. So in terms of the engineering process.
Yeah, could be stopped at close the road, get up temporary until a management plan is put in place as to whether you want to keep on maintaining the road public access. The third option was returning the road back to the owners, I think it was. The prior owners, conservation doesn't want it because they don't have enough money. Here, Regional Council doesn't want it because they don't have enough money. So it's basically the council and the hapu's interested.
Tēnā koe, we'll go to Deputy Mayor Rudkin.
Tēnā koe, Baia, thank you for your deputation today. Tautoko Marika. Just possibly a question for staff that if a gate was installed, where would that leave road maintenance? Would that responsibility still lie with FNDC? Would that?
For deputations, sorry, I will, deputations, we can only ask questions of the DPT.
Okay.
But we will pick this up because that and a million other questions will be sent our staff's way, no doubt, on this one. I really just want to thank you for your name in this space, for bringing this to our attention at a governance level and acknowledging that it has already been picked up by our operations. We'll be following up on this and definitely be back in touch. But kia kaha and keep doing your awesome mahi to protect our taiao.
It's got volume.
There's something about, is it what, third time's a charm? Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Mr. Adams is giving a verbal submission to the future of housing for the elderly residents. Thank you for putting up with technology. We've finally got you loud and clear. We don't have camera, but we can hear you. I'm happy to pass the time over to you to give your verbal submission to us.
Okay, so you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good morning, councillors. I'm just, I'm sure you've seen all this material sent through, and I've also been sending stuff to Kelly as well. Basically, with the rent in terms of, meeting the needs of our vulnerable community, it's about, giving compassionate understanding to the needs of those people. But while I was looking at the costs, I was a bit surprised because my background is in body corps, and I've been involved in about half a dozen over the years, and also I've worked with several councils with helping with pensioner housing and getting them upgraded to code. And I was just a bit surprised at the level of expenses, and I was just really wanting to present to the councillors that perhaps that's worthwhile looking at that, given that the budget constraints and the government's new cap on rate rises, that it's possible to help, with my background, the council to look into that. So really, that's all I really wanted to say. And if there were any questions about what I've written and passed on to Kelly, then perhaps I can answer those questions for you.
Hey, thank you for that, Mr. Adams. Are there any questions from Councillor Haukia Paramuda?
Did you like any of the options that were in the submission? Did you have a preference?
I sort of felt that you're talking about the rental income, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. My view was that if there are allowances, like accommodation allowances from government that are actually available, then perhaps council can take advantage of that and actually help people obtain money that would support them. And I think that it really comes down to the compassion of the council, really, because I do think we have vulnerable members of our community that, for whatever reason, have issues with paying rents that are unaffordable at the moment in the north. And, I'd like to see that the council use their discretion. So I don't really have a fixed view on it, other than that the council, councillors are actually compassionate people, so I'm sure you'll do the right thing.
Thank you for that, Mr. Adams. Are there any other questions? Councillor Stratford.
Thank you. Kia ora, Robert. One of the reasons that we're doing this rent review is because we're divesting the portfolio to Far North Holdings due to the cost of over 10 years, it's
The depreciation of
OPEX. I can't remember off the top of my head how much it is, but it's really high. 15 million over 10 years. And so your point is in regard to those costs that were in the accompanying submission information. Is that right?
Sorry, could you just repeat the last part of your...
The point that you're making about us needing to look at costs with regard to housing for elderly is the estimate of us spending 15 million over 10 years. If we keep the portfolio, you believe is excessive, and we need to dig deeper into that?
I do. I mean, no disrespect to Far North Holdings, but there are ways to cut the sort of cloth to suit, and I believe that, that's a very high level of corporate management. I've always been involved in community and local levels of supporting housing, and I've done that in Manukau. I was treasurer of the Manukau housing community housing group, and we actually had ways of actually making things work at a very lower level than what Far North Holdings can do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. I don't have any further questions here. Now, you are welcome to watch our live stream for this paper when it will come to us in any case, but we thank you for your verbal and written submission to our council on this.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Our final deputation, we also had a deputation from the one that only Manny Radich. Unfortunately, he has had a bereavement in his family, so he hasn't been able to put some just our thoughts with him. But we do have Josh Kirby here, chair of our Kaitaia Business Association, who will be deputising us to speak on 11 Matthews Avenue, the old warehouse building, and will also be presenting a petition. Josh, before we start our clock, can I just say thank you to you for your name for our Kaitaia community and across the fund that your role as chair of our Kaitaia Business Association, and it's been fantastic to see the specific mahi being done in the lead up to Christmas. So with that though, happy to pass the time over to you. Thank you for making the time to come down today.
I was originally told it was only 5 minutes, so I kept it short and sharp. So hopefully we've got a little bit of room for some questions. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko taranaki te maunga, ka te ruru te iwi, kua rako te te aku, ngā te marae, with Josh Kirby and Toku Ingoa. Although I was born in Tamaki Makaurau and my whakapapa connects me to Taranaki, Kaitaia has been my home away from home for more than my whānau there, my work is there, has influenced much of my life, and I stand today with a genuine commitment to the well-being. Before I continue, I wanted to acknowledge the recent passing of Monty Knight. Monty cared very deeply about the future of Kaitaia, and he was a part of the discussions that bring me here today. Kai Moko, ko Hikuchiki, councillors, CEO, staff, thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. I wanted to acknowledge the hard work that you are all doing across our district. It's fantastic to see. Also wanted to congratulate newly elected and returning councillors. Awesome to see you out doing mahi work. I'm here today in my role as chair of the Kaitaia Business Association to present a community petition. We are asking council to rescind the motion authorising the demolition of the old warehouse building in Kaitaia, pause all actions relating to that demolition, review the decision, and re-engage with the community before any further steps are taken. The decision to demolish the building was made under public exclusion and without community consultation, despite the site holding long-term significance for the heart of our CBD. Council's own significance and engagement policy states that when a decision is likely to have immediate or high impact on a community, engagement should occur before that decision is made. For many in Kaitaia, the site clearly meets that threshold. For a long time, the public conversation centred on the possibility of a basketball and youth facility. The sudden shift from that long-standing narrative to an announcement of demolition in an entirely different direction created confusion and concern. Open consultation and additional information would help to mitigate it. At a public meeting held in Te Ahu in October, 2 locally driven proposals were presented, one from Kaitaia Basketball Association and one from A&T Trust. We acknowledge the hard work, the heart and the vision behind both those proposals and the genuine intent to serve our community. We recognise the need for youth facilities and for housing in Kaitaia, and we acknowledge that each of those proposals included commercial elements to support and add value to our town centre. During that meeting, the idea of a petition was raised. The initial suggestion focused on supporting one proposal over another and preventing social housing development in the town centre. Many, myself included, felt this risked dividing the community rather than addressing the fundamental issue raised on the night by those who attended, which was the lack of transparency, lack of consultation on behalf of the council, particularly given the decision was made at the end of the previous council term. As a business association, we stepped forward to help guide the process in a way that centred the real issue. Our role in leading this petition is not to prioritise one proposal over another. Our focus is to ensure that the community is included and given the opportunity to provide feedback before irreversible decisions are made. Support for this petition came from a broad cross-section of the community. People held different hopes for the site. The message was consistent. The community wanted to be included. From an economic perspective, the site is unique. It is one of the last strategically significant commercial spaces in Kaitaia. It sits on State Highway 1, connects to the High Street, and carries significant commercial potential. It has the profile to attract an anchor tenant in a way that very few other sites can, and will influence how people live, work, and connect for decades to come. Barnum Holdings have stated openly that they see this as the last major opportunity for commercially development in the town centre. They have carried out feasibility work and noted recently that commercial opportunities are emerging as economic conditions improve. We recognise the financial realities. Bringing the building up to standard would cost over $1 million, while the demolition is significantly cheaper. Those figures matter, but so does the wider opportunity cost. A pause does not prevent progress. It does not rule out any proposal, past, present, or future. It simply ensures that commercially led options, community-driven proposals, and long-term economic considerations are assessed together with transparency. We, the undersigned residents, ratepayers, and members of the Kaitaia community respectfully request that Mayor Moko Tipinia and elected members of the Far North District Council 1. Rescind the motion authorising the demolition of the former warehouse building located on Matthews Avenue, Kaitaia. 2. Pause all actions relating to this demolition, including the engagement or contracting of any demolition services. 3. Defer further decisions regarding the future use or development of the site until after a new council is formally established following the 2025 local body elections. 4. Undertake open and transparent public consultation with the wider community before any decisions are made on the future of this site, allowing residents, businesses and stakeholders the opportunity to provide feedback and ideas. For clarity, this council is now fully established, and the intent of the petition is simply that this governing body has the opportunity to review the decision with full community engagement. These requests reflect the belief that decisions of this scale should involve the people who live with the outcomes. Taking the time to engage with the Kaitaia community on its future is not only reasonable, it is responsible. Thank you for your time. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Councillor Smulders.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you very much for that. Very informative. Would you say that what you're saying is that under the Far North District Council's engagement and significant policy, that this would be rated, this issue is something as high?
We believe so. We believe our community feel that way too. We feel it's an important site. It's at the heart of Kaitaia. Yes, it's been empty for a long time, but it is an important strategic spot. And we feel that the impact of whatever goes into that space will impact the community and deserves an additional chat with the community.
And you mentioned that there was a hui where these proposals were presented to. What was the council at that hui? Was it a council?
No, it wasn't. The meeting was called on behalf of Matty Radich, and he had hosted the public meeting, and everyone was invited along, ourselves included. We came along to listen and to learn. That was our objective. The initial focus was on one of the original proposals, which was the basketball and youth facility in that area. We're very thankful to Tiffany Allen, who came along from Antitrust, and he stood up and talked to those in attendance and shared some more information about the proposal. And so yes, from there was the discussion about raising a petition. Members who were there, we didn't feel comfortable with the initial piece. We felt it needed some clear direction to focus on those issues which I've outlined, so we stepped forward to lead it.
Two quick ones. Was Matty Radich there in the capacity as a councillor for the Far North District Council?
Okay. As far as I'm aware. Yeah.
And whereabouts in the timeline was the Kaitaia Business District Association aware that this process was going on and was not public?
So I saw an article by FNDC, which I think I saw on Facebook, that was outlining the demolition, and I shared that with our community, and I think I'd been the day after. It was a news
quite far along the timeline in terms of.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on until I saw that article from council, which was actually a shame because on behalf of the Business Association, we've been asking the question about development of that site for some time. I've reached out to members here asking for information about that, and I've had nothing in return. So the opportunity has been presented to council to ask for feedback and to offer ideas and thoughts, but we haven't been included, and we think that's a shame. And we would like council to reconsider that and ask the community.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you for taking the time to come down to the Mid-North today and for your continued mahi. We'll follow up directly with you on this. There are legal obligations that we have from our resolutions that have been made, though, but it will all be taken into consideration by this council.
Cool. We appreciate that, and that's all we're asking. Thank you. I do have a petition here with signatures. Could I hand that to someone, please?
The petition will be formally received, then we'll go on the minutes. That concludes our deputations. That is an hour in sitting now and teaching. We only have 45-minute periods because that's the attention span. So we're going to be having shorter, sharper sessions this council meeting to make it go faster with quick intermediary breaks in between. So if you could go toilet, get you a coffee in your coffee mug. I'll see you all back here at 45 seconds.
Thank you.
Kia ora and welcome back to our council meeting. We are going into item 5.1, notice of motion approval of central government submissions on page 6 of your agendas now. The motion is moved by Councillor Smulders that the Whanau District Council adopt the following policy and procedural requirement: that any submission, representation or formal position statement made to central government, its ministries, agencies or parliamentary select committees in the name of the Whanau District Council must be approved by the full council prior to being lodged, unless a specific delegation has been expressly resolved by council for that particular submission. Being moved by Councillor Smulders. Do I have a second that?
I'm making to second for the purpose.
Thank you, Councillor Corton. Councillor Smulders, happy to pass over to you as a member.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor. Today I am bringing forward a simple and clear notice of motion. It is not ideological and it's not complex, and it does not ask anyone to change their political views. It simply asks us to uphold the basics of good governance. This motion states that any submission or formal position statement made to central government in the name of the council must be approved by the full council, unless a specific delegation has been expressly resolved for that particular submission. That's it. Straightforward, transparent, democratic. So the submissions carry the weight of our district, and they are interpreted in Wellington as the collective voice of the Whanau elected members. They shape legislation, they influence national policy, and they carry both reputational and political consequences for this organisation. Yet we know that in recent years submissions have been lodged without full council oversight, and sometimes without elected members even knowing until after the fact. That is not democratic governance, and it's not transparent for our community, and it places both our staff and elected members in an untenable position. So under the Local Government Act, the distinction between governance and operations is very clear. Staff provide advice, elected members set policy. Submissions to Parliament, ministers and central government agencies are policy positions. They must therefore reflect the will of this elected body. So that brings me to what I believe is one of the most important parts of this motion. We all know that as with any council, the majority will often fall in a certain direction. That is democracy. But democracy is only about majority rule. It is also about the right of elected representatives to have their dissent recorded, visible and acknowledged. When submissions are lodged with our council vote, that dissent disappears. It is erased, and with it, so too is the voice of the ratepayers who elected us to represent them. Now, ratepayers have mandated each of us to be their voice at this table. When a submission goes forward that does not reflect the position of the people I represent, and I have no formal process to vote against it or be recorded as opposing it, then that is not transparency. That is not representation, and the thousands of people who voted for me lose their democratic visibility. The views become invisible in the public record. This notion of motion fixes that. It does not change the ability of the majority to carry a decision. The majority will still win, as it should, but it does ensure that when a submission is endorsed 5-4, 8-3 or 10-1, that distinction is recorded. That honesty strengthens our trust. It gives respect to minority views and to the large ratepayer base that every one of us pledged to represent. In the past fortnight, we saw an example of why clarity around submissions is urgently needed. The Fast Track Amendment Bill was released on the 19th of November and submissions closed on the 27th, giving councils only 8 days to respond. Staff here at the Whanau District Council have stated there was no sufficient time to obtain informed views from elected members. Yet elected members were not even notified that the consultation exists. There was no briefing, there was no request for input, there was simply silence, followed by a completed submission that none of us had seen. I heard about it on Facebook. We are now told that this was an operational submission. However, the submission itself argues that the bill could damage our relationship with iwi and hapu,
and affect future conversations. That is not operational. That is political, relational, and strategic. It goes to the heart of how our district engages with central government and tangata whenua. It affects trust, it affects leadership, it affects our reputation. When a submission talks about the future of our partnerships with iwi, you cannot call that operational. That is the very definition of political. So every council decision should have a distinction. Central government submissions are no different. If we ask Wellington to take our voice seriously, then we must ensure that the voice we send has been properly authorised, properly debated, and properly recorded. This motion restores that clarity. It protects staff from accusations of overreach. It protects elected members from being associated with positions they do not support. It's tidy, it's lawful, and it's entirely aligned with the principles of good governance. I ask you today to be fair, to be transparent, and to have the courage to do the right thing. I commend this motion to the council.
Thank you for that, Councillor Smulders. Councillor Ford.
Mm,
I have a number of questions of staff. Roger, are you able to outline the current process that our council has in place for submissions? And what should this motion pass, and I think it does have merit, how will this be on the ground for us at an operational level? Including I'm thinking about the tranche of legislation that passed through and the tranche of legislation that we've got coming our way. For the fast track submission that we did have come across with that very quick turnaround time, you were able to, and I acknowledge that Councillor Smulders has raised that, step from operations to a governance side, but we had already had a previous submission to the first bill come across the table that you based staff response off. So you had already had some governance input. I acknowledge not from this new council that sits around this table though, but can you just talk about what that looks, what the current process is and what the implications of this notice of motion would be for operations on the ground if it were to be successful? I do have a couple of other questions and comments to raise after that.
So the current process, if we're talking about unlimited amount of time, as council would do a triage of things that are coming from out from central government in the way of policy changes or legislation changes. We were taking it to what was the reforms portfolio and getting some direction from the reforms portfolio about where we would go and what we'd submit on. Council staff were making recommendations on things that we would submit on. There was a significant amount of policy changes coming out of central government, so we were being very deliberate about picking the ones we thought were important. So that was happening. Council staff would draft a submission, and that submission, if we had unlimited time, would be for approval from the men and then the reforms portfolio holders. And then anyone else might have interest in as well, we would make that available, and then the CEO to approve for that submission to be lodged. That's the process that we were operating under.
And then it would come to council.
Then it would come to council
after.
Well, if we had unlimited time, we would bring it to council first, but we've been operating under a modus operandi, if that's the right word, for a while now, where we have not had, where submission deadlines have not synced up with council meetings. So we've been making retrospective approvals. So we've been bringing submissions retrospectively to council to clear away that the council had approved it. And from memory, I think most of the submissions brought through have not actually ended up in anyone's actively overturning those submissions. But that's an unlimited time process. If we could bring it to council and go through approval, unfortunately, the timeframes we're given for submissions have not synced up with council meetings, and therefore having to retrospectively put submissions up. Natural Built Environment Act, fast track, the treaty principles bill, those were examples where we had to try and rush things through because of the timeframes that have been put forward.
Can I ask, or this might be a question for the GGs, if we were to have all come across this table before getting submitted, what would that look like in terms of extraordinary council to achieve that?
Just to help with that, I'll just explain the current situation right now. You've all got a brief on Friday. That came out that said you've got a submission on the simplifying local government bill, which is in play right now. That is due by 20th of February. You've also got on the agenda today the adoption of the formal meeting calendar. The formal meeting calendar has Te Kukupa Strategy and Policy Committee meeting on the 18th of February. So there are elected members in that who are part of that, chaired by Councillor Stratford, they'll be chaired by Councillor Ann Court, Councillor Smolders and Councillor Balfour on that committee. So that's 2 days before the submission is due to be lodged as our first opportunity to formally bring something in front of a subset of councillors. The next council meeting is on, I think, yes, in March. So we effectively don't have time to get that submission through without an extraordinary council meeting right now if we're going to make a substantive submission on a significant piece of legislation change. So that's the reality that we're operating under. I'm trying to bring to the table in front of elected members a draft submission, and staff will draft up a submission, and they'll do their best to try and stay apolitical as much as they can, and just give that view on what it means from the impact on operations. The chance for the members for an input from a political stance is at that when we can get it in front of you. But I'll just give you an example. We're in that same reality right now. So if I push it, sorry. Yeah.
What's the standing orders time for extraordinary meetings to be able to meet potential legislative deadlines that fall outside of our formal meetings calendar?
So council can convene a extraordinary meeting at 3 working days for the actual meeting day. And there's also for us to call an emergency meeting, but we have to be clear on the grounds and that is effectively an emergency or extraordinary grounds are that cannot be delayed for any particular reason.
Can the meetings can solely be virtual though?
Yes.
Because the costs of all of you driving here, of all the staff being in the room at the same time. I'm just trying to think practically if this was to go through, how we could mitigate some of those things, but still ensure that every person has a voice. All right, just quickly before my next, other questions for you, Roger, please. What's the process that other councils follow, or they just do not submit, or they just submit operational, or are they holding extraordinary meetings? First question. Second question is, we a number of you in this room have Tai Tuara, the Society of Local Government Managers membership. So by association, the Whanau District Council is a member of Tai Tuara who do submissions on this. And we also a member of Local Government New Zealand that submits. What's the process for, they're submitting as their organisation, but by association we as members also input into their draft submissions. And so what's the process there?
Yeah. So we pay close attention. In fact, we use the Tai Tuara submission that they're putting forward as our basis. And we look to see if there's anything in there that we can add, or if there's anything additional that might be specifically particular to the Whanau district. And if not, we actually just go with the Tai Tuara to avoid duplication and use that. And LGNZ is a little bit different. We do look at the LGNZ submission, but we realise the LGNZ is a representation of elected members. So from a staff point of view, we pay attention to, but the one that we do pay attention to the most is the Tai Tuara submission. They have a whole crew of people that work on this stuff. That's their job, just responding to us. There's about 5 or 6 staff. As for other councils, it's a mixed bag. From what I know, some councils, they don't have like resources. They do struggle, but like us, trying to respond to these things. I do know that other councils just don't. They just give up. They can't do it because they can't find the time to submit it and have to rely on Tai Tuara. So if you're resourced up to do it, then you can respond. But the same thing applies: is that when can they actually get in front of the elected officials to get a formal approval? Will be stuck in with their own calendars and timeframes. North Regional Council, Whanau District Council, when they get it happen. Given that we're given a matter of weeks to reply, to respond on legislation as it comes out.
Thank you for that, Roger. My final questions are probably more to Councillor Smulders, just trying to understand the ramifications of this motion should it be successful. Would you see that extending to submissions that are made by Tai Tuara or Local Government New Zealand membership bodies that we are an organisation of? And my other question was, how does this apply to, because this is any submission, representation or formal position statement made to central government. I'll give some examples of some that have not come across this table. Kaitaia, I wrote a number of letters to Mr. Portaka and Minister Kemp in the past on Kaitaia Airport, outlining the issues that we were facing and having it in limbo around the lease requirements and the funding requirements. We had a year-on-year, a month-on-month lease arrangement, so we couldn't draw down any funding in our long-term plan to get that because we couldn't extend it over a 30-year lease and pay it off accordingly. So I wrote a number of letters on behalf of staff and Councillor Harawira and Councillor Pliskevich by resolution were given the responsibility to oversee Kaitaia Airport. We were successful in those letters in getting 5.4 million, but that never came across the table like this. On local water done well, I write a number of letters through the Merrill Forum as well. We were successful through those letters in getting former Mayor of Papakura, David Hawkins, funded by DIA, and also $250,000 from DIA for local water done well. But those were representations on behalf of this council that I myself had sent through. So I'm just trying to test the bandwidth of how this would apply so that I can make an informed decision on where I would sit in terms of the vote.
Kia ora, thank you, Mayor. In regards to the NZLG, that's a left-leaning organisation, so probably wouldn't present the views. In terms of my motion, it's clear that it states that it is for any submission, representation or formal policy. Other councils do this. They use the extra or the special committees. It doesn't need to be complex. It can be a 5-minute meeting. I'm not asking to change the submission. I'm asking that we do a dissent around that. So in your response, Roger, it sounded like that you wanted us to have this kind of back and flow even and hear our views and change it, and we don't have time to do that. And I acknowledge that some of these timeframes they're going through are really fast. What I'm asking here in the motion is that we have a dissent, so it is formally lodged. So I'm not getting phone calls from Wellington saying, crikey doodle, Davina, did you agree to this? It's got your representation on it. And I think it's a 5-minute process and we don't need to make it complex. It can just be practical. Did that answer your question, Mayor?
Thank you. That makes me feel like any letter I will need an extraordinary meeting to get sign off though. But that's okay, that's another implication to consider. I'll go to Roger for a response, and then I do have in the speaking order Councillor Freeland and Councillor Research.
Yeah, just a couple of things.
Oh, sorry, not what I said. I would use Aisha's one. She's been paying more attention than me. Roger.
Just some clarity. So just in line with what you said, Councillor Smulders, WDC do delegate delegation away to manage submissions. Some councils don't submit. Also, I've seen staff submissions, and I'm remembering one from Hamilton City Council staff. They did their own submissions to clarify that was a difference. So there's some different ways of dealing with this. On the agenda today is the adoption of the terms of reference of Te Kukupa committee, which is Strategy and Policy Committee. That one there, if you look at it, you'll see that it says the words are, the responsibility is to have input and discussions on legislation and regulatory proposals relevant to the council function. It says has input into it. So what I might suggest, if you could strengthen that to being delegated to draft the submission or maybe even approve the submission, that could be something that could be considered. If you want to delegate that away to another committee which has a lesser representation on the full council, that's just an option.
Roger, can you just give some clarity? You mentioned a submission as apolitical or operational. Can you just give some clarity around the nature of that?
Yeah, so the submission from a staff point of view, if it's not supporting a previous submission, so the fast track one was referring to previous add-on. Yeah. So it's basically looking what is the impact on how this place operates. As if you're going to do a submission that's going to change out, resource management legislation, for example, which is going through right now, just came out yesterday. What does that mean for the council and the way how it operates and interacts with the community from a staff level? And that's the perspective we put on it. And a political one is, political.
I could have an example on the politicising one. The staff submission that you drafted for the Local Government and Māori Wards and Constituencies Amendment Act was not reflective of my own personal political views on that, or those that were shared by others at the table. So I brought a notice of motion forward to ensure that we were able to reword certain elements of that submission to put a political lens on it.
Yes, that's an example of the staff looking at it purely on what it means around operations.
Okay. I've got Councillor Foy.
I previously in the last training was the reform portfolio holder. I too had the frustration about it not coming to council to put our governance or political lens over it and to shape the submission to reflect the special concerns of our district that may not be status quo with existing legislation. An example of that, as you're aware, Memoko, is the H1 climate zones, and the staff operationally had a different view to elected members and only wanted to talk about the status quo that was being proposed by central government instead of looking at new opportunities that may benefit our district but were outside the box per se. So I agree that if it had come to council, like what Councillor Smulders is suggesting, that we could have addressed that at that time instead of there being a discussion at an operational level that operations weren't doing X, Y, Z, that the portfolio holders were suggesting because there was no delegation of council to do as such. So I see that frustration personally, so I can understand why this may benefit elected members. But also I disagree that there shouldn't be letters about general matters about our assets, for example, about the airport, etc., because that's not a piece of central government legislation specifically. So personally, in terms of the motion, it says here any submission, representation, or formal position statement made to central government. So I'm happy to look at the wording of that and how that may scope the representation of council, because I think that we need to look at opportunities for the farm that are outside of the box, that operations may feel are political in nature, and so they won't do that without a council resolution. So I'm not sure if the word representation here in the current motion is too broad as such to reflect those concerns, or a formal position statement. I'm not sure what that means in terms of a dictionary definition, but yeah, I'm happy to hear further debate around that, but I do support the any submission part.
I'll go to Councillor Hauki on how do we do it.
Ai, kia ora mo tēnei. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Foy that any submission that should be made on our behalf should be, should have council support or endorsement. I was a member of the portfolio committee, and there were times that the committee was so overwhelmed by the number of bills coming that staff had to say we can't actually make any submissions on 95% because there are too many coming too thick and fast. And And I can recall when Councillor Foy made the submission about we don't need triple glazing windows in the far north because of our, and she did that at multiple levels, not only to the minister of whoever that was, I can't remember, but to, you know, in feedback and submissions, and we supported that in the portfolio subcommittee. And you know, it won. It won. So you know, I don't agree that the mayor should be hampered, or any of us should be hampered, if we are able to advance anything that happens for council that we've already agreed is an important take, that it needs to come back. And I just find it overly bureaucratic. And the other thing too is, I don't believe that we are here to be filling out report cards to a political party inside central government. Our role here in Far North District Council is to represent the views of the people of the Far North. There's so many bills under the matter of an urgency now that, you know, in some cases I've been watching texts fly about we've got 8 days to respond, but actually you can't put any submissions in either. So I think that that's not democracy. That's not good governance at all. So and the bill that says a removal of 4 well-beings, you know, even in infrastructure is about well-being. It's not, it can't be disconnected. Infrastructure includes well-being, whether you want talking about a dusty road, water quality. It's all about well-being. You can't remove them. So, you know, those kind of rules, I feel like I'm just going to tolerate them. And I want to note that I want to be on that Te Kukupa committee, which is about policy planning and strategy writing. I don't want to be left out. And that I contributed to a number of submissions last year when everybody else was too busy, both personally and also with staff. So I just want to acknowledge the emergency timeframes that staff are under to perform, and then having to say we can't do 95% submissions on these because we don't have the capacity in such a short time frame. And I would urge the mayor to continue to, and whomever of us as councillors are, to continue to look for ngā mea pai mō tēnei hāpori katoa. So that's pretty much all I want to say. And yeah, kia ora. Wainami, thanks.
Kia ora. I'll go to Councillor Stretford, then Councillor Vucic.
Kia ora. I'm not going to support this in its entirety, and I think that there's part of it that could be addressed at the first Te Kukupa committee meeting next year. I totally disagree with the submission, representation or formal position statement being delayed by or constrained by, as by Hilda said, bureaucratic processes just to tick a checkbox with a particular political party. And I just want to reflect back on the process that we've had over the last 8 years. We did have council approve submissions at this table, and then for the last 2 governments, things have, this current one and the previous one, things have moved so swiftly that it's been chairs or the mayor and portfolio holders that have had to approve. And then, as Roger said, we've had retrospective approvals and discussions, and your dissent at it, noted in those, and you can go out on your Facebook page and publicly, say you voted against it, what have you. I think that our voice is very important in these submission processes, and I appreciate the staff guiding us on, helping us to triage the ones that we need to prioritise, and I do acknowledge that we've sometimes conflicted on which ones we should submit on and which ones we shouldn't. But if you aren't in that Te Kukupa space, or Te Kuaka as well will be doing feedback on submissions as well, because there'll be things in their realm. Then you just have to voice to the chair or deputy chair of those committees, or Roger, that you will, or the mayor, you escalate it, that you want to ensure that your take is in there. But I'm sorry, if you're a minority voice at this council table, you're going to have to just keep bearing with the fact that, you are that minority voice at this table. Kia ora.
Councillor Research.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Moko. I certainly agree with the intent that Councillor Smulders has put here in the writing, but I've heard just how difficult it is, and I appreciate that as well. My issue, though, I do have an issue, and the issue is that we are, by way of notice of motion, effectively creating a policy or making alterations to policy and procedure statements. So that's where I have an issue without actually having staff do the necessary background and produce a report which is going to give us all our options, which is part of the requirements when making decisions, that we have the full options there. And I was concerned also about some of the ramifications that the Mayor asked that was gone into, so I take it that the community board is excluded from this, not being a committee of council. And also recognise that the Mayor has, by his role, as he can advocate on behalf of council. So putting all that together, I think doing something right now means that we're making decisions. We haven't got the full weight of the consideration behind us. I don't think one committee should be doing that, because again, it's a smaller number. Otherwise, all of us will put our names on there as well, which will defeat the purpose of the committee. So I do think work needs to be done in how we can effectively achieve this, and in a better manner. I'd say I wouldn't vote on it at the moment. I'd lie it on the table until we've actually done that. We have an issue before us at the moment. I realise that, and I'm certainly sending emails around and doing an online meeting we can do. But I know
Thank you, Councillor Research. Councillor Smulders, right of reply.
I think we're missing the last line, which says, unless a specific delegation has been expressly resolved by the council for that particular submission. So everything doesn't need to come here. There are no unlimited timeframes. So I think that addresses your point, Roger. But thank you. And I just want to bring us back round to the heart of the emotion, that no matter what different points we have been raised, the core issue remains unchanged. We are talking about the voices of elected members. And these need to be recorded, visible and traceable when submissions are made to central government. And that's pretty much the beginning and the end of it. Can't really resist. It would be unwise or unnecessary. Every submission we send to Wellington carries the authority of this district. So it's unacceptable for those submissions to go forward without a clear record of who supported them and who did not. I think there's a quick way of doing this. Other councils can do it. To deny councillors the ability, and to your point, Councillor Stratford, it's okay to have our position recorded, and it is not just about the minority voice being silenced. It's a very strong statement that the minority voice is being silenced. So for those reasons, I don't think this motion hinders anybody. I think if the tables were turned and we were left-leaning, or there's some other political lenses coming through in a stronger minority, I think you too would also want to have your voice recorded. I think it's really important that everybody that we've been elected here, that we all represent, that as it's been recorded. And for those reasons, I'm going to stand firmly behind this notice of motion. I think it's respectful. I think it's responsible. And I think it enhances the mana of this council by making our process transparent and honest. Kia ora.
Can I see, should this fail, can I see signal already?
Should this fail, I would look to have Roger bring the current process back to the table with options in any case to make that very clear. And in the interim, what I would be looking to do is I'm going to vote this down because I think it's too broad. And I don't want to be in a corner having to come to you all to ask if I can sneeze as the mayor. But what I do want is for elected members to be able to have their voice on submissions to select committee, but not any representation because, I don't know, I'll go out and I'm the funnel everywhere bloody go. And you're going to come with me and say if I'm allowed to say hello. I don't know.
Yeah.
So should this fail, I'm going to ask staff need to bring that formal process and make sure it's written back to this table. But I will take I just want to add to that really, I don't think it needs a resolution. By default, it needs a formal process wrapped up for us anyway.
So like in the heart of all of this is the delegated authority.
The current delegated authority sits with me and the chief executive. As between now and then, what I would be doing as mayor is any select committee submission, I will be requiring us to have an extraordinary meeting until we get our. And just so you all know, an extraordinary meeting is not just 5 minutes online. The amount of preparation for myself as the chair and all of the staff that are in here before you even get to the table is why I have to dye my hair. So it's not as simple as that. I'm going to put the motion though because the right reply has been given, so you can, what's it called? For me. All those in favour of the current motion say aye. Those opposed? Right, by division. I am opposed. Deputy Mayor Radkin. Councillor Allen.
Oh.
Councillor Balke.
No, for me.
Councillor Court.
Opposed.
Councillor Foley.
Opposed.
Councillor Halkiat Harawira.
Ka
Councillor Stratford. Councillor Smulders.
For.
Councillor Akina. Councillor Vucic.
Yes. Can we have a note?
Can we have a note, please? And Roger, can that note also include that delegation does sit with me and that I would like, until you bring back a formal process to us and paper to 3rd of March, and I'll give you another Christmas present because I don't think you're going to have one. Can you please have it noted that I would like all select committee submissions to come across council table formally as an interim step until we get a formal process that dives deeper into what is.
Your Worship, can I just raise a quick point of order? Yes. Once you put the motion and everyone's someone then put a division and we re-vote. I'm uncomfortable with that process, and we please formalise a process where we do it once. Yes. If it's a vote by division, that is called for with a verbal vote.
Thank you for that. What I will also ask is when voting, if you can then raise your hand when we're doing and make it a bit.
Sorry, I'm just getting clarification around delegations and another sort of view of delegations going for review.
Through the chair, I'm responsible for a review of delegations that's going on. I am reasonably familiar with the council delegations to staff, and the way that the delegations sit at the moment is that it's a very broad delegation that sits with the chief executive, and the chief executive is on delegated powers to members of SLT, so that someone like Roger, as the responsible GM, prepares the submission, and then the current delegation for those situations in which there is not time to come to council is that the CE and the relevant portfolio that submission. I understand that you're sitting in a situation where you haven't had those relevant portfolios, but that is the current delegation that we have within our delegations register. And I would certainly look at the issues that have been raised at the table as part of my delegation's review. However, that's a longer process and likely to be towards the end of the first half of 2026.
I've got a massive meeting to get through. We'll talk about it after. We are now going to go to item 7.8, which can be found on page 22 of the supplementary agenda. The item is a response to notice of motion for sealing of roads. So page 21. The recommendation is that council endorse the strategic approach to the unsealed road strategy for unsealed roads. Agree to include the identified marae and kohanga reo sites in the prioritised program for road sealing and dust mitigation. Direct the CE to continue working closely with Waka Kotahi to secure funding for dust mitigation at high-risk sites, including those affecting marae and kohanga reo, and to report back on the outcome of these funding decisions. Direct the CE to finalise the unsealed road strategy and present the updated dust risk findings and draft dust control policy for council approval by 26, and direct the CE to incorporate budgetary requirements into the next annual and LTP. I will move if I could get a second. Councillor Haukia, this was, I declined this notice of motion in the previous term, because there was a response from staff that the outcomes it was looking to achieve were very likely achievable, but with NZTA subsidy rather than not being able to get a subsidised, paying it off the skin of our own backs rather than getting a 71% tick from NZTA. So I did decline the notice of motion to give staff the opportunity to be able to do some of the required to be able to demonstrate that. That has now come through in this report, and we will consider it before going to the notice of motion itself. Councillor Haukia, how do we do?
E kau e tino kōrero, kei roto, pipa katoa, aku a kōrero. I think marae and kohanga reo sites are important, marae are important community sites, and a fault of the dust matrix really is that when there are hui tanihanga, there's no thing, that monitors how many cars are using the road. The important civil defence sites and kohanga reo, and I have tried to do something through the ministry. People just don't want to touch it, but I'm thinking these are our children. I don't think that any other ECE sites are in this position as kohanga reo. And it's been going on like this for over 40 years with kohanga reo, and some of our marae are over 100 years old. So yeah, I think it's all in there. I appreciate the time that's been taken to whatever tidy it up. So it's pretty obvious. Hilda.
Councillor Stratford.
Hilda, I just quickly want to acknowledge Hilda for such a massive report and her patience for this paper to come to us. I know it was very frustrating, the wait. But the research that's gone into this, investigating the sites, the kohanga sites in marae, and just add my personal context, because I had, bandied on about getting sealed various roads in our ward, and they've been successful. So I feel really bad. But you guys, the rest of the district has kohanga and marae that have been overlooked, and I know in the dust matrix, which we need to be reviewing the framework around, last two, we still haven't got to that usage. Kohanga weren't being captured when it said schools. Yeah, so just need to raise that for Marguerite as something to ensure but I take from your review that it's captured this time around. But yeah, the conversations that I've had out at Oturu were, Korunga wasn't even acknowledged as a site that needed some dust mitigation or seal. Yeah, so total bore.
Before I go to Councillor Research and Councillor Court, Andy, could I have you stand up and show your face to the members of this chamber? Andy Brown, your title is? Andy is our Transportation Business Manager, and we are incredibly grateful to have you as a part of our Far North District Council whānau. And this, along with a heck of a lot of other things, we need you to get sorted for us. But I just remember to acknowledge you and welcome you to the Far North District Council whānau, but also introduce you to elected members, because you're going to be very busy, mate. Kia ora. Councillor Research.
Thank you, Mayor. We have major challenges with dust and roads and issues, and I just want to commend Hilda for all the work that went on. And the wisdom that the Mayor actually showed by actually not needing to notice the motion, which I would have voted against because it would have created a significant cost overburden on council, whereas this motion, which I support, is going through the process, which was looking to achieve the same outcome, but saves the cost through the local share and everything else. So just an example where the approach that I'd like to see actually done a lot of the detail in front of us. So I certainly support.
We have had 3 speakers, continuous speakers in favour of the motion. Councillor Court, you are, however, our roving expert here at the Far North District Council, so I would usually call for someone against, but I'll come to you because I think you've got insight that will be helpful.
I too would like to welcome Andy to the team, and I'm not responsible for the black eye.
You guys do have a bit of
We're going to come up with a better story than the dog, aren't we? Andy was a member of the council prior to 2016 and was instrumental in helping me develop the remit that went to local government in New Zealand that ultimately enabled us to get dust as a fundable activity through the National Land Transport Plan. Now, for councillors who've been here a while, you've heard me say this before, but we have a number of new councillors at the table, so if you'll just indulge me, you might go. I inherited the roading portfolio when Wayne Brown became the mayor, and the very first deputation I received was from a community in Oturia who were profoundly impacted by the effects of dust on their health, to the point that they were convinced it was responsible for some deaths in their community. I was so disturbed by the deputation that I wrote a remit. That remit was supported by this council. It went to local government New Zealand, and it was supported there, and a national working party was put together to study the impacts of dust on human health. We did a number of experiments here in the far north with e-beam monitors so that we could go back with some empirical evidence that could quantify the impact of dust on human health. We worked with Emissions Impossible, Road Efficiency Group, New Zealand Transport Agency, Ministry of Health, World Health Organisation, and I was very privileged to be the only elected member in the country that was put on that working group. 2016 we published our first report, and in 2017 it became legislation, and we were then able to apply for money to address the impacts of dust. We then developed the dust matrix, our own version, because NZTA's version, the one which does qualify for funding, looks solely at things like traffic volumes. It does not look at the social indicators. So it was critical for me that we put the social indicators onto that matrix. I want to be really clear that the dust matrix was only ever developed to address dust. It's not an economic development tool or a resilience tool. It was just dust. And Marae did figure on that list of 22, along ecological areas, horticultural and school, marae, hospitals, places of worship and places of cultural significance. I am told today that our dust matrix will not qualify for NZTA funding. I want to challenge that. I want this council to challenge that. I do not want to go back to a dust matrix that solely looks at traffic volumes. And I understand NZTA has limited funds, but when they look at their budget, they are looking at the road, and they're looking at the integrity of the road, and they're looking at maintenance costs. We are looking far beyond that. And to use Hilda's words, we are looking at the well-being. So we know that dust is contaminating water. We know that it's getting into lungs. We know it is the leading cause of premature birth for people that live on unsealed networks. There's a whole raft of data in that report. You can Google it, or I can find it and send you a copy. Andy told me the other day he kept everything. I hate to think what the size of his storage shed looks like, but he kept all the original paperwork. And I want to thank the staff for the amazing work that they've done here. I particularly need to acknowledge Rob Gilmore, who's not in the room today, who's been working tirelessly on an unsealed road strategy. There's a number of ways to skin the cat that's not going to cost our ratepayers a fortune. And the first way to do that, it's probably best if Andy explains it because I might get this wrong, but we can apply for funds to build up the road, legalise the road, get the road ready for seal. That's fully subsidisable from NZTA, and then we come back the second year and put the seal on. That's a lot cheaper. We can do otter seals, we can do dust suppression. There's a whole bunch of things that we can do. So the dust strategy will enable us to do so much more than just 34 Marae and Kauhangareia, but they are important. I want you to know that they are important, but I also wanted to address some mistruths out there that the dust matrix didn't include all of these things. It did. Whether we had the weightings right, whether we had everything on there right, those points could be argued, but it was a brilliant piece of work, and I'm happy for it to go on my tombstone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to address it. And I just, is there anything Andy wants to add? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Foy and Councillor Smulders, you're in my speaking line. I just want to ask if either of you will be speaking against the recommendations. Councillor Foy.
I want to raise something about the comms for this.
Okay.
Just on what's been raised here, and I think it hasn't been brought up previously, but the public out there genuinely do not understand that we get 71% from federal government. So they've shown that an individual councillor on this council could go out and just pick a road to seal, or they could go out there and make a decision and get millions of dollars magically appear. And I think that's a really important story that our council has not ever made clear to the public about the buckets of money, and where our comms teams with Firehill, for example, and our roadie portfolio holders really need to tell that story so that people can understand why we can't just go out tomorrow and seal a whole lot of road.
Common answer would be sealed through.
So, in terms of responses, I have told that story to the public, and people were shocked that that was the case because we haven't done those comms previously. So, just so I can see, we've got Nicholas here from comms, but can we please
put through your committee and put that with that beautiful diagram thing that Rob Gilmore did around the standards, and there could be some real nice comms pieces on rating in New Zealand.
And it's as well for the dust suppressant, because we've also had feedback of why can't we do the whole road? Why can't why are certain roads only getting done and not others? So maybe some explanations around that as well.
Councillor Smulders.
Kia ora. This notice of motion before us today is not a symbolic gesture.